Have it 7:15, we'll now call this meeting to order. First up, if I can ask our County Administrator, Mr. Meadows, if he would lead us in a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance.
Yes, if we could rise, if you're able, for a moment of silence, and then I'll lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. First up, presentation, recognitions, and awards. And I think we have Mr. David Clark from Virginia Department of Transportation here. Good evening, Mr. Clark.
Hi. Just a few maintenance updates. This being the sort of the end of the calendar year and the holiday and vacation season. We're mostly just trying to patch up what we can. We did do, in fact, a lot of patching. We had some decent weather in between some cold weather and a threat of hurricane, but did some patching on Craig Creek Road and Mount Tabor, even on Tyler Road and Fire Tower. Actually, we did quite a bit on Fire Tower, section near Mud Pike, near where the logging operation is, as well as some on Centennial and on Old Pike Road. Did some brush cutting. We continue to try to do a lot of brush cutting. I went out and looked at a couple of spots. It looks like Keister's Branch had done. I don't know if it was done this past month or the month before, but they did get a lot on Keister's Branch at least. I don't know if I got down Lick Run or not, but I know you talked about that one. But Keister's Branch looked good. And then trying to just get some machining the unpaved roads and hauling some stone. A few pipe replacements, normal kind of maintenance type things. We are getting ready to start work on the low water structure at Taylor Hollow. Weather permitting and all that, next week should be the start. It's going to take quite a while, but that will get started. Then we'll figure out what to do about the unpaid part. There's still some discussion on what to do with the curb with right-of-way and stuff like that, but we can do probably the most critical part is the low water structure. So that's going to start next week. A couple of other board requests. There was you'd asked about whether Craig Mountain Road had lines. The lines are down on Craig Mountain Road. The speed limit was not approved. And I think there was a question about a stop bar. Stop bar is not there, but I don't know if it had been approved or not. I'll check on whether the stop bar is going to be put in or not. I know there's a request, but the lines are down. And there's the sign up on Radford Road is not up yet, the deer sign. I checked that today, but they know it needs, they probably have to order it. Those aren't signs we keep, so they're working on that. And that's it. Takes any kind of requests or questions.
All right, very good. We'll go around the room. We'll start off with Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Yeah, we had something brought to our attention on Route 114, had to do with the widening of it, and that it is in the 2025 State Highway Plan for the Salem District. Do you know anything about that? Apparently it was developed in 2005, maybe?
Right now, there's no plan for any kind of, as far as like extra lanes, you mean, that kind of extensive?
Yeah.
There's been plans for it since I've been working at VDOT, but it got defunded a long time ago. And those plans are probably no good anymore. It would take a smart scale type of application. It may be on a desired plan, and maybe as that gets there, it would have to be requested either by the county, or I don't know if the whole thing is in the MPO or not. If the MPO would have to request that. Okay. But it would have to be there. Right now, there's no plans for design, right of way, any phase of widening of 114.
Okay, now, I do understand, I think we were told this a while back, that there was going to be money for improvement to the Price's Fork interchange.
Absolutely,
But
yes,
that's like
yes.
2026?
That's still, yeah, yeah.
Now, when that's improved, would that be designed in such a way that if it was four-laned, it would match up?
It would still, there would probably have to be some more work done there. It's not being, since there is no plan right now for widening 114, it'd be a lot of extra work to design that for speculative, what a future 114 would even look like right there.
Okay, probably cost
Walton
it.
Road on the other side, that makes it really hard to account for that. So it would have to be redone, but I don't think that would be a major cost addition to any kind of widening 114.
Okay, probably cost a couple of $1 million anyways, right?
Yeah, probably a few.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor King.
Thank you for the updates on them signs. Got a couple of things on Elliott Creek Road. Got a few phone calls on that. They said they'd like to see somebody come down and grade it or fix some of the big holes in it.
Okay.
And on Bangs Chapel Road, the gravel part, the road looks good. It just don't have no gravels on it.
Okay, that's probably one they need to haul a bit more stone to.
Okay.
Baines Chapel.
All right. Appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Supervisor DeMotts.
Thank you for being here. Can you remind us what the scoring matrix is for Smart Scale, or at least like what a project is scored on?
There's several categories, and it's actually an acronym. This the SMART part of it. It's and I'm gonna get them all wrong, but it's but most of it's congestion. Safety is the top one. So what they look at is accident data over the last 5 years. So there's the safety and congestion, economic benefit. I can't remember what the others are. Those are the three major ones, though.
Safety is the highest.
Safety is, yeah, it gets weighed on safety, which tends to skew a lot of the numbers. I mean, they all get skewed when you don't have as much traffic as roads in the other parts of the state, even if it's just a kind of a percentage thing. You have to look at accident rate other than sheer numbers, because you're gonna, if you get a lot of roads in Northern Virginia, Richmond area with just a lot more traffic, you're gonna have more accidents just due to volume. But often that's normalized for some kind of traffic rate, per traffic. So that's the first thing they look at, and then see if it's addressing a spot where there's been a lot of accidents, a lot of fatalities or injuries or stuff like that.
Is there any mechanism to be more preventative rather than reactive?
We look at that just in kind of our normal safety analysis. Every time there is an accident, we investigate it. Our traffic engineering people look at it and see if there's anything we can do, either from a maintenance standpoint, or even if there's something we can do with signs or edge lines or lighting, depending on the type of road.
But no construction.
Right. Yeah, there's no construction fund. There are smaller funds that don't have to go through Smart Scale. There's one called the Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP, it's sometimes pronounced as. And there are other funding sources available other than Smart Scale. And if there's a specific area, we work with county staff quite a bit and meet quarterly and try to find out what kind of projects the county would be interested in. And we have a person down in our Salem office named Anthony Ford, who's been talking to the staff quite a bit over the last couple of years on trying to find ways to address what might be a safety project if it would not fall into a large, Smart Scale type project like widening 114. The office here in Christiansburg also gets every year probably about $75,000, I think is what it is, in safety and operational funds. And we can address small things with that. Usually what you don't have in construction in the secondary program is anything outside an unpaved road. If it's not an unpaved road, there's very little money for construction outside of Smart Scale. There are these smaller pockets of funds, and safety and operational funds is one of them. And if it's a highway safety improvement project, that would be one. For instance, we're getting ready to do some work on 460 between Roanoke Road and the Cambria Street exit or Franklin Street exit, a place where there was that serious accident several months ago. But that's going to be funded through our highway safety improvement program, and there's going to be edgeline rumble strips and guardrail put in, the gaps that where there isn't guardrail now. So that's something that's being funded, a safety type problem that's being addressed, but funded outside of Smart Scale.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that information.
Supervisor Bone.
I didn't think that rumble strips were used.
These are the kind that are like on the interstate. They're cut into the side. It's kind of to alert drivers that may have drifted or something like that. But yeah, those are used on. There are places that would put them in the center as well. If it's a 2-lane road, sometimes you'll have a center line rumble strip to keep you from running into ongoing traffic.
I gotcha.
But these would be more like the ones that are on the interstate that are put on the side that are cut into the asphalt.
Gotcha.
They're not raised strips.
So for the low water structure on Taylor Hollow Road, have you gotten rights of way that you needed and things like that?
Everything's good
Okay.
for that. Yep.
So really, it's just the planning at this point in time.
Yeah. It's planning. Getting our hired equipment contractor, who has plenty to do, is just getting him time to do it, and they now have a window of opportunity now that nothing else on their plate, and they're going to be working on that for the next couple. It's going to be a couple months.
And when would construction start?
They're going to start next week.
That's awesome. Mill Point Road off of Harding Road. The resident who's the first one on the right had a bunch of runoff go into his yard. I think he said that somebody came out. Can you tell me a little bit about what that
I
was
know
about?
I wasn't the one there. We did meet with him, the superintendent, and my assistant met with him and went over a plan to address it. He seemed to be pleased at the time. I don't know when we're going to get to that, but there is a plan. We do plan on correcting that.
Okay. And timing, this next year or?
It should be within the next few months. Yeah,
that's
if it's
great.
not in this kind of
Sure.
weird December, January kind of time frame, later in January or February, I would think. we should
Sounds
be
good.
able to-
Thank you.
Yeah, depending, hope we don't get so much snow.
Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
The brush cutters did a good job on Long Shop Road too, around that steep curve where I had to get over in the other lane. And if you went on Keisha Branch, did you see the big hole coming in the road?
Yeah,
Right where Keisha
yeah,
Branch goes under?
So I know where that one is now too.
Yeah, that'd be good if we get that taken care of. That's all I have. Thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Hi, David. Thanks for coming tonight. Any update on the Prices Fork Roundabout?
No, we're still discussing options with, I need to get them out here to look at it at night, and that may be something when we get to do our drive around the county, we'll take a look at that too as a group.
Have you
It's just not a real good place. I've looked at it myself, and the sign is where about the sign can be. It's an odd spot with where it is, where driveways are, and where you could put another sign that would be either not too far back, because you don't want to warn people too closely, but then
Right.
if it's too close to it, doesn't do any good either, because you already know you're at a roundabout.
Well, I'll keep bringing it up, so if you have any updates. And you're going to plan on staying for our meeting when we're talking about the rezoning request that's along 114?
I can do that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, David. Thank you for being here tonight. So after the public hearing meeting, at the last board meeting, I did have some citizens come forward and contact me about concerns over Route 114. This is nothing new to you that you hear about accidents and about being able to pull out and the volume of traffic there. So if you would be able to stay after when we discuss that, just a clarification for that, I think it would be beneficial for the board members. And then just an update, I know that lowering that speed limit to 45 will help. When will we implement that? I know you said we were going to give some warning.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get to that probably next month. They're the same crew. The crews are they're trying to get all the lines painted on all the newly paved roads, and that's weather dependent, so their schedule gets stretched out. but it's on their list as soon as they get as soon as they're done line painting for the season, they'll get to that.
Okay, very good.
But I'll keep poking them about it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any follow-ups? Thank you, Mr. Clark. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Next, we have public hearings. We have 3 public hearings scheduled for tonight. The first public hearing is AFD 14 renewal for Fisher's View. This is a District 14 Fisher's View, which is located in the southeastern edge of Montgomery County in the Fisher's View Road, off of Allegheny Spring Road. Currently, AFD 14 consists of 2 property owners and approximately 532 acres. The proposed new district would consist of 1 property owner and approximately 322.283 acres. 1 landowner is requesting a total of approximately 209.748 acres to be removed from this district. And we have Ms. Hopkins up here to explain all that for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So most of you know, we review agriculture forestal districts every 8 years. They are on an 8-year renewal cycle. It's basically a contractual agreement between the landowner and the county to participate in the AFD districts in order to preserve our agricultural and forestal lands. So non-participating owners also get some benefit. While they may have some slight increase in real estate taxes to offset land use, it also reduces the development pressure in these areas of the county that we want to preserve because they are significant ag and forestal lands. So all residents do benefit from that good stewardship. The landowners basically do not get a whole lot in return other than they just agree to not develop their property, except in the ways that's allowed per the ordinance. So it is our policy to encourage that. We have 9 AFD districts with a total of 24,616 acres at the moment. They do renew every 8 years. The local governing body, according to state code, may continue, modify, or terminate any district, and they can also add conditions to each of those districts. So these are the uses that are found to be in compliance. Basically, you'll see most of them are related to an ag or forestal use, such as residential dwellings for landowners that have farmers, forest workers, that type of thing. We do allow subdivisions, but only if the property is going to stay in an agricultural use. So if you have a 200-acre parcel and you want to make 2 100-acre parcels and it's going to remain in that use, we will do that with a note on the plat that has the expiration of the next AFD district. We also do family subdivisions, so that way if you need someone to come out and help take care of the farm that's a family member, that is permitted also. Other than that, we do not allow any minor or major subdivisions. We allow general farming, of course, temporary sawmills, exploratory activities for oil and gas resources. Data poles, those are the small cell centers that are placed throughout. So they're just little boxes. So that way it'll continue your broadband. Telecommunication towers that are attached, and then telecommunication towers that are freestanding. Those do still have to meet the requirements of our zoning ordinance. So if a special use permit is required for that use, they would still have to go through that process. And at that point, you could review whether it's in compliance with the AFD or not. So AFD 14 was originally formed in 1990. It was last renewed in 2014 with only 2 landowners at 532 acres. We did send out notices to both of those landowners and did receive a response. One of those requested withdrawal and one requested renewal. Luckily, the renewal was 322 acres of contiguous property, so it can remain a district. You have to have a minimum of 200 acres of either contiguous parcels or 1 parcel. So this is your map. You can see Allegheny Spring Road here, and this is the Roanoke River. This is Fisher's View. The properties that did not renew are in orange, and the ones that did renew are in green. And there are your landowners that renewed and requested withdrawal. So as I stated, it does leave the district intact. There are no requested additions at this time. The AFD committee did review the request and they did recommend approval of renewal. The Planning Commission also voted to recommend approval of the renewal by a 6-0 vote. There were no public speakers at that meeting either. And with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you. Mr. Motts, do you have any questions? Supervisor Bone?
No, thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd? Supervisor Fidzikowski?
No questions.
Supervisor King?
No, thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs?
No questions.
Bree, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will open up for the public. You have 4 minutes to address. I do not have anyone on the sign-up sheet, but if anyone would like to come forward to address this public hearing, you have 4 minutes to do so. You would start by saying your name and your address.
Now, this is for the AFD public hearing. Oh.
Thank you.
Thought that might be why you were coming.
All right. Seeing no one come forward, we will close the public hearing for the AFD 14 renewal. All right. The next public hearing, special use permit, Patel and Shaw for general store. Ms. Hopkins, your star again.
Thank you. So this is located out in the western portion of the county. You can see it here right off of McCoy Road at the corner of McCoy and Big Vein. This is the existing property. You can see there's an existing building there along with 2 accessory structures. This is Big Vein Road, which is a private road currently, and then this is McCoy. In your zoning map, everything in this area is zoned agricultural A1. So this property did function as a general store from 1969 to 2002. At that time, it ceased to operate. In 2010, we did get a request to reopen the store, but the way our ordinance is written, once something that is non-conforming, meaning it did not have a special use permit or approval before, ceases to exist for a period of 2 years or more, then they have to become in compliance with code. So there was a determination made that a special use permit was required. That never came forward to staff. It is the belief that it's because they could not obtain site distance. Some of you may remember Big Vein Road was on the rural additions list, and they could not obtain site distance at the intersection in order to improve that road to be taken over by the state. So it was removed from the list. Since that time, there has been new ownership on the other portion of the property that's at the corner of Big Vein and McCoy, and site distance isn't now obtainable. So we did place Big Vein Road back on the rural additions list in 2017 at the bottom. So in 2022, I did receive a zoning complaint that there was a store open on site and that it was not permitted. And so once I looked into it, I did see that they needed a special use permit, contacted the owners, they did cease operation, and then they have been working toward obtaining their entrance and filing their special use permit application since that time. This is images of the site. This is the store building. This is the side of the store. You can see Big Vein Road here on the right. This is the back side of the building adjoining the residential property, and then the 2 accessory structures that are on the property. These are Big Vein Road. This is the intersection of Big Vein and McCoy. And this is another view, but you can see it's kind of one long entrance there. The entrance also goes onto the property for the store. And then this is looking back Big Vein Road. This is looking to the left and right on McCoy. So the existing building is 2,800 square feet. They have proposed to revise the floors so that way only 2,000 square feet of it will be used for the convenience store retail area. The remaining square footage is going to be used as an office space and storage. Access to the site will be provided through Big Vein Road here. No automobile fuel sales will be permitted with this. They are proposing to close the entrance in the front, and they will replace that with landscaping. This is the layout that they have proposed for the store. You can see the racks here and how they've closed off for some of the storage area in the office space. The applicant does anticipate 50 to 60 vehicle trips per day to be associated with the business. That includes customer traffic, employees, and deliveries. VDOT has verified that site distance can be achieved, and VDOT has looked at this plan for the entrance as well. More detailed plan will be required when they get to site plan approval stage if approved. But you can see they are planning to widen the Big Vein Road entrance here, and they will be paving this. So the site is served currently by an existing private well and septic. The property is not located in a FEMA designated flood zone, and removing the impervious surface up at that entrance and replacing it with landscaping will improve the area. Noise is not anticipated to be an issue. The applicant has proposed LED lighting, which will be downcast, so there will not be any glare, and security cameras have already been installed on site. So this lies in an area of rural in the comprehensive plan. Generally, these areas are not served by public utilities, so no public water and sewer. They are generally for agricultural and rural residential uses. So these are the two sections of the comprehensive plan that apply. The rural area land uses discusses non-agricultural endeavors in this area, and the proposed use does support the community. It is small scale, compatible with the surrounding area, and it does use that vacant structure. There's honestly probably not much else that could be used for that structure on site. It does provide minimal impacts to the surrounding area. And then economic resources, it does reestablish a commercial business that serves the community. So the use does provide a viable use for an existing vacant building. It does generate limited impacts on the surrounding property. The upgraded entrance will actually serve the residents along Big Vein Road, and it does benefit the future development of Big Vein when it arises to the top of the rural additions list, because site distance will already be taken care of and those improvements will already have been made. A full site plan will be required if it is approved. Several community members have expressed support for the business. I actually have received more calls since the business shut down than I did when it was in operation. And we had numerous speakers at the Planning Commission public hearing in support of the request. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval with the following conditions. A basic site plan addressing zoning conformance with landscaping, parking, and other requirements shall be approved prior to issuance of permits. Any exterior lighting installed on the property shall be designed to prevent glare on adjacent properties and comply with dark sky friendly standards. A land use permit shall be obtained from VDOT prior to the issuance of any county permits. And that motion did pass on a vote of 6-0. All adjoining landowners were notified. We have ran the legal ads in the Roanoke Times and placed the public hearing signs on the property. Like I stated, several inquiries and calls have been received by staff in support of the project. Numerous speakers did express support at the Planning Commission public hearing, and there may be many to have comments here this evening. With that, I will take any questions you have.
Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hopkins. At this time, I will open up the public hearing. I have a sign-up sheet. I will call the names off the sheet to speak. Then if anyone else would like to address the board, you will. You'll have 4 minutes. You'll state your name and phone number, name and address, not your phone number, name and address. First speaker I have on the list is Bobby Carner.
How are y'all tonight? I'm the seller of the store, and I know a lot of y'all, and glad to be here tonight. I just want to support, Mr. Patel and them. It's a shame they run into some bad luck or whatever you want to call it. I just want to say I'm in support of it. The community needs a gathering point. Every community needs a gathering point, and this will help them tremendously. And before I forget, I'd just like to ask everyone here that's for it to please stand for a minute. Not as many as we had at the planning commission. So anyway, that's all. I just hope, y'all consider it favorably, and it will help the community tremendously. It's been closed for too many years. Thank y'all. Mr. King, I know, and Ms. Biggs, Craig, of course, and Darrell. Thank y'all, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to come forward to speak on this public hearing? Seeing no one come forward, we will close this public hearing. The next public hearing is a proposed ordinance establishing a cigarette tax.
Madam Chair and board members, this is an item that has been discussed a couple of times with the board. As you're aware, the General Assembly has given the counties the ability to enact a cigarette tax like cities and towns currently have. The town of Christiansburg and the town of Blacksburg has a cigarette tax now. We are proposing a cigarette tax ordinance that would become in effect. Marty, you want to answer that a little bit? If the board decides to move forward with this, when would the tax become effective?
Currently, the ordinance says April 1, 23.
Thank you. Thank you. So this evening, this is just a public hearing to hear input on that item. I don't believe the board anticipates any action tonight. It's just a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I have several people on the sign-up sheet, so I'll call their names first, and then anyone else that would like to come forward, if you'll state your name and your address. First, I have Susan Miller.
My name is, excuse me, Susan Miller. I live at 3065 Mud Pike Road. I support this tax. I feel that it would be a big help to Montgomery County Parks and Rec Department. It would help with facilities as well as programs, which are very important. Just to give you an idea of what Montgomery County Parks and Rec does now, in the just completed fiscal year, we had 277 programs offered. Joint programs, which are programs offered to Blacksburg, Christiansburg, and the county, we had 96 of those. The joint participants, which would be the participants of all three areas, was 2,314. Most importantly to us this year, with a functioning pool and people being able to swim, the participants were 15,688, and that was just for this summer, and the fiscal year ended June the 30th. So I think that you understand and can see that any additional monies that would assist with staff or facilities would be helpful. I've participated with Montgomery County Parks and Recreation since my children were small. I coached them. We lacked facilities at that time, and guess what? It's happening again. We have this year in basketball, which is just beginning, 34 teams representing Auburn, Eastern Montgomery, and Price's Fork. 34 teams. When my daughter was playing, and she is 44, she would kill me if I told you how old she was. But anyway, when she was 44, but when she was playing basketball, we were looking for people to play. So you see that it does make a difference, and the population is increasing. My father was a smoker. He smoked 5 packs a day, and it's what killed him. I support the cigarette tax. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, I have a Jennifer Martin. Ms. Martin, you have 4 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Martin. My address is 809 Elliott Drive in Blacksburg. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak in support of this tax that the county is considering. As a mother, it's important to me to always emphasize to my 2 teenagers the value of making good, healthy decisions. Part of that is avoiding gateway substances like alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. I've been very clear as a parent about the risks that are associated with each of those and what a lifetime of addiction can look like, and the incredible toll that that can take on you as an individual, your family, your community. I think it's important, as you consider all of the implications of a tobacco tax, that you consider especially the harmful effects of tobacco products. It's already been stated here clearly tonight that that impacts people on a very personal level. One source I consider to be really the nation's leading advocacy organization to prevent tobacco use is the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. And if you're not familiar with that group, I would encourage you to take a look at their website, tobaccofreekids.org. But they have several resources there that state the U.S. Surgeon General has called raising prices on cigarettes as one of the most effective tobacco control interventions. Tobacco tax increases help make cigarettes too expensive for price-sensitive kids, and they also give smokers another incentive to quit. The general consensus is that nationally, every 10% increase in the price of cigarettes reduces adult smoking by 2%, reduces smoking among young adults 3.5%, reduces the number of kids who smoke by 6 to 7%, reduces overall cigarette consumption by approximately 3 to 5%. Those numbers may not seem like very large percentages. They may seem like small drops in a bucket, but I do promise that those buckets do eventually fill. As you take a look at the other localities around the state of Virginia, you can see that places like Herndon at a tax rate of 75 cents per pack, or Hampton at 85 cents a pack, or Alexandria at $1.26 per pack. 40 cents isn't nearly what some of those localities have instituted. A 40 cents per pack rate makes good policy sense, it makes good public health sense, and it'll net significant dollars and cents for Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anyone else like to come forward on this public hearing? Hello.
I'm Barbara Crockett at 708 Graceland Court, Blacksburg, Virginia. And I don't have any data for you or anything like that, but I just want to say this is a win-win situation for Montgomery County. We need the money, obviously, for the things that we do in this county. And to smoke cigarettes is a choice. It's not something that is put on people for, like the doctor says, oh, you have to smoke or whatever like that. So I just think this is a win-win situation, and if you campaigned on no new taxes, forget that part, because this is something Montgomery County truly needs. And I wanted to ask one question. Is vaping also in this proposal? Will somebody put it in there? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else also like to come forward?
Hello. I'm Billy Newcomb at 2370 Mount Tabor Road, Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm actually against this tax. I'm the owner of Gobble Stop, a convenience store chain headquartered in Montgomery County, and have a location on Prices Fork Road that will be subject to this tax. And would like to share some information about how this tax impacts my business and other businesses like mine. Though not immediately adjacent to a county line, I am benefiting from a competitive advantage against cigarette retailers in neighboring municipalities that levy a tax. Pulaski County, which is part of the Mount Rogers tax district, levies the 40 cent per pack. City of Radford also 40 cent. Town of Blacksburg at 30, and Town of Christiansburg at 40. Adding this new tax will draw customers out of Montgomery County to places with lower tax rates, Roanoke County, and Blacksburg, or no cigarette tax at all, which would be Floyd County and Giles County. This will negatively impact gross revenue for Montgomery County retailers and additional tax revenue for the county, such as meals tax, as they trade their business to other jurisdictions. I operate 17 convenience stores in 6 different tax jurisdictions throughout Southwest Virginia, and unique municipal tax stamps add complexity to my business. In my business, tax stamps require 6 different pricing strategies to manage in our price book, and limits inventory management by restricting the ability to move slow-selling merchandise to other locations. The burden is even greater for wholesale distributors who deliver cigarettes to retailers, as they are responsible for applying these tax stamps for each municipality, as well as the state that they're selling them to. The distributors purchase tax stamps from these municipalities and apply them to each pack. This requires them to hold millions of dollars of tax stamp inventory just in their warehouses. So a good example of this is we have a location in Narrows, Virginia, which has a unique tax stamp. There are 4 cigarette retailers in that jurisdiction. The people I buy wholesale goods from has to carry that stamp just for that one location. It is burdensome for them, probably more so than me. In conclusion, I'm opposed to this tax, but I do ask that if ratified, Montgomery County join like the Mount Rogers tax jurisdiction, so you do not have just a unique Montgomery County tax stamp. Make it a little bit easier on us business owners to not have to navigate all these different rules that we have to play with, make it a little bit more homogeneous for us. Mount Rogers implemented this beginning of this year, and I believe they incorporated 4 or 5 counties to this, therefore having one tax stamp across many, making it a little bit easier for us to deal with. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during this public hearing? Seeing no one come forward, we will close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to move into work session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Board members, thank you for the time for this item this evening. Angie and staff have worked hard to pull together some information, an update, if you will, for the 2023 county reassessment. I know that's been a topic of great discussion, not only on social media, and I know the board members have gotten a lot of emails on that as well. But we wanted to share the latest information that we have on that issue, and Angie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to go over the basic premise of the reassessment process and how that works with the tax rate and that kind of update, and let you know where we stand as far as the process is concerned. Do you want us to have? Vicki, do you have that? Thank you.
Thank you.
As you know, the reassessment notices were mailed late last month, and some property owners did have substantial increases. These values are just one part of the tax bill equation. There are 2 components of the equation are the assessed value and the tax rate. If we multiply those together, we get the total tax bill. Montgomery County is required to assess property at least every 4 years based on our population, and that is what we have traditionally done. The change in value is over a 4-year period, so that's been a little bit of a misconception. Some people have felt like it was an increase in a single year, but it is a 4-year increase. And the second component is the tax rate, which, as you know, you will set that rate in the spring as part of the budget process. Another item that has come to our attention is on the back of the notices, the state code requires that we include the current tax rates and show the reassessed value with the current rates and what that percentage increase would be over the current year. That's confusing because it implies that that's what people's tax bills are going to be. You have the discretion to set the tax rates in the spring that will adjust that. To go over where we are with the property value assessment a little bit more, you remember that Gary Eanes with Wampler Eanes presented to you on October 24th, and he regrets that he's out of town and not able to attend tonight. I'm going to do a brief recap on this slide of a portion of his presentation from that night. The goal of reassessment is to produce accurate, consistent, and equitable assessments throughout the county. And the primary way that that's done is by analyzing sales data, current sales in the current market. And Wampler Eanes has continued to do that even today. They're still looking at sales in our jurisdiction, and the sales are still strong. They shared some information with me as late as today with some people that have filed appeals, and they had sales that were very comparable to the assessment. They were actually higher than their reassessed values. Again, this is a 4-year increase. It's not a single-year increase, and as we reported earlier, the average assessment is about 30%. That is made up of different categories, which we're going to bring more information to you at a later date as we flesh that out a little bit further as far as commercial, multifamily, and residential, but the residential rate is in that ballpark as well. And we're also going to provide, as we get more information from the commissioner and assessor's offices, the breakdown between the county and the two towns. Values are still being reviewed, and so they will likely change, but we don't anticipate a significant change.
Angie, if I can just add something there as well, as we've looked back a little bit, the assessment that was done in 2006, I believe, that was effective in 2007, that one had an average increase of 33%. And if you recall, back in the mid-2000s, there was a similar housing run. There was a lot of sales. Inventory was short. So while that 30% is a big number, it's not unprecedented. We've seen that in prior reassessments.
The years between 2006, 7, and the current reassessment were fairly stable. They were 3 to 8% or 9%. So this is considered really higher than those years, but it is not unprecedented. The appeals process and formal hearing process, homeowners, when they're considering whether or not they should do that, have to take into account whether or not they could sell their property, not whether or not they would be willing to sell it, but could they sell it on today's market for the assessed value? And property owners who believe that their property's market value is lower than the assessed value may appeal the assessment in multiple ways. There are basically 3 ways: an informal appeal with the county reassessment office, formal hearings with the Board of Equalization, or that then they could file an appeal through the circuit court as the final method of appeal. The informal appeal process is underway right now. It began December 5th, and the deadline to request the informal appeal is this Friday. All of the appeals will be concluded by December 23rd, and I've listed the ways people can appeal on this slide. Those are also available on our website. So far, as of Friday, 449 appeals have been received. If you want to compare that to the last time we did this 4 years ago, there were about 1,200 appeals in the informal process. So far, it's tracking behind that, but we're just partway through, so it could definitely increase. The vast majority of the appeals were made online, either using the appeal form or email. 74 appeals were received through the Postal Service, and 25 phone appeals have been scheduled. The next step is the formal hearing process. That begins with the Board of Equalization. An appeal through the Board of Equalization can be made whether or not an informal appeal has been made. That's also a little bit, it's not exactly clear, but that is definitely the case. Whether or not an appeal goes through the informal process, it can go to the Board of Equalization. Those will be scheduled, the scheduling process actually will start January the 9th and conclude February 10th, and then the actual hearings will run from February 22nd through March 29th. This slide is hard to see, but it lists out the dates that have been set by the Board of Equalization. They will be formally advertised in the near future weeks, and then we're also going to communicate those through our social media outlets. The final appeal process is the process that follows the disposition of appeals by the BOE. If a decision is made by the BOE and a taxpayer still disagrees with that, a property owner can appeal that decision to the county circuit court, and the property owner must provide evidence that the property is assessed at more than the fair market value, that it is not uniform in its application, or that it is not valid. That's the assessment portion of the equation. Then the tax rate portion is a little bit briefer at this presentation. We'll give you all kinds of information about that in the weeks and months to come. The process for setting the tax rate in a reassessment year is a little bit different than in other years. The state code allows us to retain 1% of the reassessed values, assuming there's an increase in the values, to cover the costs associated with the reassessment process. A revenue-neutral tax rate is then calculated, and those calculations will take place during our typical budget cycle this spring. That it will actually start in January. Finally, any tax rate above the revenue-neutral rate has to be advertised as an increase, and there has to be a public hearing. The advertisement must occur 30 days before the public hearing rather than the 14-day period that's traditionally required for a tax increase in a standard year that does not include reassessment. Because of that 30-day requirement, our draft budget schedule is a little bit different than a typical year. We will hold the public hearing for citizen input on January 9th. That is typical. And then on January 23rd, we'll give you preliminary revenue estimates, which is a typical time frame for that as well. The schools will present their budget to you on February 13th. On February 27th, the county will present Craig's proposed budget to you. That's a week earlier than we normally do, so we're gearing up for that. But that's important that we start a week earlier, because if we don't do that, it's going to push your decision and the tax tickets further into May and possibly the 1st of June, the end of April and 1st of May, which tightens the time frame for taxpayers to pay their June 5th bill.
And Angie, I was just going to interject there. That's what when we develop the budget schedule every year, we start with June 5th, which is when the first tax tickets are due, and we start backing up the timeline to see where we need to be. As Angie mentioned, with the 30-day notice in a reassessment year for the public hearing, that's made it aggressive. I don't recall ever presenting the budget at the end of February, but we'll be ready. We've already started, so.
That's right. A week later, we hope that you can establish an advertised tax rate. That would just be the advertised rate, not your approved rate. And then we could hold the public hearing on April 13th. And we would request that you try to approve the tax rate and adopt the budget on April 24th. That's my update. If anyone has any questions. I'd be happy to entertain those. And I would like to thank the assessment office and Mark Magruder. They've really helped me a whole lot put this together. I appreciate their help.
Very good. We'll go around the room. Supervisor King, any questions?
Just one, we, talking about the, establishing the tax rate and everything. On March the 6th, establish the advertised tax rate and budget. But then if you look back at the formal hearing process, people will still be going through their hearings.
That's correct. They will be going through the hearings. We're going to keep up with those hearings and see how they progress. And if we can't make it that date because we're not close enough, then we'll have to move that further into the future.
I appreciate all the work y'all put in on this, but just my concern is if we go ahead and set a tax rate and people still going through the process, they're going to say, why should I go through the process? They already moved forward.
Well, now that,
Be the advertised rate. It would not be the adopted rate, so you could always go down. But I do understand that concern.
two things I'll add to that. Again, that would just be what we're advertising, so that rate would not be the final rate. It could be, but that will be up to the board through the budget discussions. The other thing that we'll monitor as these appeals go along is we'll get a feel for are there some adjustments that are being made that we've got to reflect, or are they pretty much true to form? So the date for the board is that April 24th date, and that's when you'll approve the tax rate. But we're going to keep a close watch all the way through to see how things are going with the appeal process.
Thank you.
And the Board of Equalization will finish by the end of March, so that will all be resolved about a month before you have to vote on the actual rate.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor DeMonts.
Thank you. One thing, I guess just to clarify, I've heard a couple of times, more than a couple of times, that the reassessment was done in response to inflation in the buyer's market. And the way that I understand it is that reassessment bills or reassessment notices will go out again in November and December of 2026.
Right.
And again in November and December of 2030.
That's right.
2034. And so I guess just to clarify, the reassessment was not done in response to anything in the market. In 2014, we knew that this was coming. In 2018, we knew this was coming.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That is correct. It is every 4 years.
And what would we, as a board, need to do to change it to more frequently? Are we allowed to? I understand that 4 is the max that we can go, but we could go annually or every 2 or every 3?
Yes, we could. We could do that. If we did currently we contract that work out. If we did it annually, we would probably hire staff to do that. I don't know the legal process for changing the frequency, but if we were to make it more frequent, we could certainly do that, and it would not have as large an impact. There have been years that if we had annual assessment rate, the assessed values would have gone down. It would definitely smooth out the changes.
Don't be surprised if something may show up in the budget message in February.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
And I know that hiring staff or doing it more frequently would come at a cost, because then we would have employee salary and benefits to consider. But I know right now that for my home, it was shocking, and I know for a lot of other people's it was as well. So I think it's safe to say that we'll be looking at, as a board, we'll be looking at a lot of different options. Can we go back? You don't have to go back in your presentation, but you said a revenue-neutral tax rate is then calculated. Could you give a better definition to what a revenue-neutral tax rate would be?
Yes. A revenue-neutral rate is the rate that we would have to, in this case, roll the current 89-cent tax rate back to a lower value so that the overall collection is the same as the current collection. So when the rate is neutral, everybody's assessment didn't go up by the same amount. So some people went up more than the average and some less. People whose rates went up less will have a benefit of if it was rolled back to the neutral rate. If it was rolled back to the neutral rate, then people whose assessment was higher than average would not have the whole benefit of the rate.
And the one thing with revenue neutral as well, as a matter of fact, that slide's still up, is state code allows you to retain 1% of that growth because the reassessment costs several $100,000 every 4 years. So you're allowed to keep a portion of that to cover those costs. And then the revenue neutral rate's calculated, but it's not a big difference.
Right. That assumes that the increase is more than 1%, which obviously it is this year, but some years it has been much closer.
And I've also, and I'm asking this or saying this, I think, kind of for the benefit of the people that we have gathered here, because I know there's a lot of upset people in the community. The 89 cent per hundred is not next year's tax rate. The amount on there, I'm just reiterating what you said, is not what the actual tax liability will be. This board would set that this coming spring.
Right.
As part of a longer process. We hope people continue to participate in that as well.
Supervisor Bone.
I want to thank you for the presentation. I think it was super great. I think it's very informative for people to understand how we do our work. I do want to reiterate that I probably can speak for everyone up here, have gotten numerous emails, calls, talked to people in person in my district, District A, in the northeast part of the county, including much of Blacksburg. The average increase was 25 to 40%, but we had an outlier of 89%. So we're trying to help everybody. And this is the process. This presentation just lays out the process. And I often will say patience is a virtue because we've got work to do. And that time frame that Ms. Hill laid out, we have to work through that process. But please know we're on your side and that we will do everything that we can. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
I think April asked all the questions I had. One of which was about how could we change how often we do the assessment. I just hope everybody understands that we pay taxes too, so we're in the same shoes you're in. And I don't look forward to your all's jobs. That's all I have.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Angie, do we know approximately how many or what percentage of reassessments were above the 30%?
I'm gathering that data. It's not all put together yet, but I am going to get that. We've given you that in the past. It's just not in the form that we need to show you how many fall into a certain range around the average. And then as Supervisor Bone mentioned, the outliers, how many outliers are there? There are some. We need to know how many there are. We're comparing that data right now, and we'll get that to you as soon as we can.
Okay, I would appreciate that because it seems, and it may be that I'm just hearing more from the people in the 80%, even some in 90% range, and that's 30% is shocking, then 90% would knock you out. So
There was a property owner that spoke with the assessment office recently whose property doubled, their assessed value doubled, but in the past year, they bought the house for more than it was reassessed at. So sometimes they are pretty big outliers, but it's because there is sales data that supports it, and that's really hard to address because that's the method that they're supposed to use. But if there are cases where there are outliers and there's no support for that, then those people need to file appeals.
well, that's what I'm advising them, but I guess we're not probably going to get into it tonight about what else we could do besides going to revenue neutral in addition to that, if we deem that necessary. Do we have any other?
it can only be addressed through the rate. We can't do a similar thing to the real estate rate that we did to personal property.
That's what I was going to say, is because this is governed by, the reassessment process is governed by state code. And that's the reason we've been talking about the two-part equation, the assessed values and the tax rate. Once that assessed value is determined, your only recourse to be able to address that is through the tax rate.
So there would be no such thing as a cap.
I'm not aware of any legal means to. No.
Or a homestead exemption?
Well, we do a homestead exemption. I mean, we'll continue to research that, but it just in our brief discussions, the only way we've seen that you can address it is through the tax rate itself.
My biggest concern is, and I'm sure, Angie, that the example that you used, that does happen. People will buy a house, pay more for it, add a two-car garage, put in a swimming pool or whatever else, increases it, but those are not the ones I'm hearing from.
Right.
So that's my concern, but I thank you.
Vice Chair Biggs.
I want to thank staff for the information tonight. Basically, earlier this evening, Sheriff Blevins and I had an interview with WFXR, and we saw it as an opportunity, an educational opportunity to get some of this information out. And I think it's really critical right now. People are in the holiday season and they're under stress, and they get the reassessment, and some people weren't sure. Like when they got that, it looked like it was a bill, and that was what they were going to have to pay. And I'm just really glad that we're getting the information out. Like, hey, everyone just calm down a little bit, because we're going to all come together. We're with the citizens of this county, and we know that we're going to make adjustments, and we're going to have to look at it. And that part will come in March, as was stated, when Craig Meadows presents his budget. We look at the budget, we look at the cost, and we look at how is it going to be paid for. And if you look over time, we've been pretty conservative with what we've been doing with our budget and our tax and the tax rate. So I think that this will help getting the word out, and we're going to have plenty of opportunities. There's going to be a public hearing, as was stated, January 9th. There'll be another one in April. But anytime, as you saw tonight, you may come to any of the public addresses and address us and email us and call us. And we're here for you. We serve you. We serve the citizens, And so I think it's important for everyone to know. And so thank you for all the work that went into this.
Thank you, Vice Chair Biggs. Ms. Hill, let me ask a question on slide 12 on the formal hearing process, where we have the schedule of the dates. Can you explain a little bit how that process will work?
Property owners can either call or mail the Board of Equalization. They might also have an option to email them. We haven't gotten that set up, but we probably will have that as well. And there's a requirement that after a hearing is scheduled, the property owner has 45 days to prepare for the appeal for the hearing. They can waive that and have it sooner if they want to, but that's why why it's a long time frame for that process as well. So property owners will reach out to the Board of Equalization staff. They'll schedule the hearings, and then the hearings will be held either via Zoom or in person on the dates that are listed. The last dates say as needed, that we typically do that in case people can get all of the hearings taken care of before that. The Board of Equalization is fully aware that they might have a lot of appeals this year, and they might go through to the end. I will note that there are some evening hours that are going to be scheduled in. We didn't list the times on this slide, and there's a Saturday as well, so hopefully that will accommodate people who can't get off work to make their hearing.
The citizens will contact the Board of Equalization, and then according to one of these advertised hearings, they will schedule that. and the citizens would have 45 days prior to the hearing. So are we scheduling hearings now or after the informal appeal?
After the informal appeals, it will start on January the 9th. That's when people can start that process.
And then they can waive the 45 day to prepare if they want to have their
Yes.
hearing sooner.
That's right,
And then if they meet the criteria, they could go to the circuit court.
right.
And all of that would be done before we, hopefully, a vote on the April 24th tax rate.
I don't know about the circuit court. I don't think they would be heard that quickly, but the Board of Equalization will be finished by the end of March.
And several of the supervisors have already asked questions. I had concerns. One was because I'm hearing people coming in 56, 46% higher. So I was interested to know what the percentage, how much was higher than the 30% average for that. And I want to thank staff for this presentation. And what I'm hearing from the board is a willingness that we hear our citizens and we know that these rates are high, and that we plan to work through the budget process to address these, and that will be one way we know for sure is through that tax rate, by adjusting that tax rate and taking every opportunity and researching for any other resource or tool that the state allows us to do to address those citizens' concerns. Correct? Okay, very good. Do I have any follow-up? Supervisor Bone.
So for some of our taxes, senior citizens sometimes can get a tax break. This is not one of them. Is that correct?
There is a tax relief for the elderly program. I can get the
Or
details.
real estate
Yes.
specifically?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to make sure that we know what that is.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Any other follow-up? Do I have a motion to come out of work session?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Bigg?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Out of work session. Next up, public address. I have a public address sign-up sheet that was out front. Let me make sure I have that. Yes. But anyone that, after I call the names on the list, if anyone would like to come forward, they can address the board. You will address the board. The speaker has 4 minutes, whether speaking as an individual or a representative. All comments must be directed to the chair and other supervisors from the front. Please begin by stating your name and address. Debate between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Speakers may leave any written statements or comments to the supervisors or the board clerk. Speakers will be judged out of order should the speaker engage in any personal attacks, use of profanity, or abusive language, or debate with the audience and not address the supervisors. The first name on the list is a Judy McBriar.
I'm Judy McBriar. I live at 4681 Fishers View Road in Pilot. I was a little shocked when I got my tax estimation here. I lived in my house for 36 years. It was built in the late 70s. The improvement that we made in 1988 was to put a pole barn on there. I replaced the roof in 99 on both the house and the garage because of a hurricane came through and blew trees down on. That's the only improvement other than painting the outside. So, having said that, according to this, you have now said that this house that was valued at $206,800 is now worth $230,000. That's quite a lot for no improvements. Now, that being said, I don't know who figured out how to do these estimates, But I live on 12 and a half acres. This land is very hilly. My driveway is 7/10 of a mile off the road. The land that runs down through there is very narrow. It's just enough for the driveway. Once you get to the bottom of the driveway, my house sits on the hill. All the land around the house is straight up a mountain, or it's down in the swamp area. There is no way that house has increased $24,000 in 4 years' time. So, listening to you folks talk, I gather that it's probably irrelevant that I'm coming up here to talk to you anyway. Now, the only way you can handle this is to, instead of charging us 89 cents per hundred, is to lower that rate so that these folks, and I'm not one of the bad folks. Some of these folks that I have talked to, they have had a bill that has gone up by $80,000. That's outrageous. There's no need for that. And I can't believe that this is allowed. So if you're going to do this, then you're going to have to lower the rate that you're charging per $100 per acre or per assessment. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's ludicrous. And the other thing I want to address is, if you're going to raise my taxes, then give me something for it. I've lived over there for 36 years. I still have to haul my trash to the nearest dump. I live in what we call the armpit of Montgomery County, because you run in and out of Floyd. We can't get telephone service over there. We have to go through Floyd Citizens Co-op. Our internet comes through there. We may sit over there a week without seeing the highway folks come over and plow out our road. Several years ago, when we had a large snowstorm, the farmers got together and plowed our road out to the main road. So if you're going to charge us, then give us some services out there.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, I have a Michael Myers.
Thank you. I just hope that y'all really look at this bill and the percentages. I'm going to use a situation in my account. I'm one of those that's got the real high tax bill on my property. Whenever I built my house about 5 years ago, I had it appraised. It appraised for about $555,000. Of course, you all voted for the dump to be put in right beside my property, and my property value went down. In March, I borrowed some money against my house to buy some property, and whenever I did, they sent out an appraiser. The appraiser valued my house now, after the landfill was put into rubble that we'll be here Wednesday for. My house appraised for $443. Tax assessment on it last year and throughout the last couple of years that I was taxed on it was only $386,000. So, and this year my tax assessment is $478,000. So I went from $386 to $477,000, and I have a appraiser that come out from the bank that says it's only worth $445. I mean, that's a big difference in taxes. So, I mean, if the 30% or whatever is voted in at 89 cents on 100, I mean, I might as well just sign my property over to the county and say, hey, you can have it. What I work for, you're taking from me, because I can't afford to pay that tax bill. I mean, I worked my whole life to build this house. We've had this conversation with the landfill being put in. I mean, that should have never been put in there. I mean, you know, you're just taking and taking and taking from the citizens. The county is, not you all. So hopefully you all will look at this come up with a reasonable number that's gonna make it, you know, respectful for the citizens of this county. And it can't be based off of the housing market over the last couple of years, because it's went up. And I have family who's in real estate that sells real estate, and real estate's not selling right now because interest rates are high, and the cost of houses, people can't afford the payments. So, you know, this real estate's growing and growing. It's not growing. It's stopped. It's going to hit bottom. It's going to do like 2018. It's going to crash. And all these people who went out here and spent all this money buying, you know, $250,000 houses that used to be 4 years ago, $150,000 house, they're going to lose themselves. I mean, they got a house they're going to be stuck in for 15 or 20 years. And if we're paying outrageous tax rates, they're not going to be able to afford it. So just look at the bill and, you know, make the right judgment, especially for the citizens. You know, we deserve that.
Mr. Myers, could we have your address, please?
It's 2977 Spalding Road.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be back here Wednesday.
Next up, I have a Dean France.
Hello, my name is Dean France. I live at 1938 Peppers Ferry Road, Christiansburg, Virginia. I was not able to attend the Planning Commission meetings or the board meeting last week or last month due to prior commitments. So I thank you for taking the opportunity to hear my concerns. I'd like to begin by saying that I support any by right use of land that a landowner has. I think that is an important fundamental right, that people use their lands how it is zoned to be used for. However, I do not support this development on Peppers Ferry Road. My concern is it's a high-density, high-use development that does serve a very positive purpose for our county. Affordable housing is an awesome idea, and it's an awesome approach, and I support that. What I don't support, and why I don't support it, is because the entrances that are going to be built into this property are basically in what I call a swag or a dip in the road. If you're familiar with that stretch of road, the Christiansburg end has a little bit of a knoll. The Radford side of this swag is a little bit of a knoll. And at 45 miles an hour, it is difficult for us to get out of the driveway. Numerous accidents at Rolling Hills, numerous. Some of them just happen and they just go away. The police aren't even called. Tow truck comes, pulls them away, and they're gone quickly. Our neighbors have trouble getting in and out of their driveways. So my concern is safety. I've realized turn lanes would help. It would, turn lanes would help. I acknowledge that. So just out of curiosity today, when I was thinking about what I was going to say, I was like, you know, I wonder how many feet you can travel at 45 miles an hour per second. So I do what all responsible people do. I went to Google. And the answer to that is 66 feet a second. That's from the flagpole to the front door of this building. That's a lot of ground. And that's about halfway through that little dip or swag. So I'm not against the development, but I'm against it now because of safety. I think the development idea is a good idea. I think the way it's being approached and safety is not being, the safety of our community or citizens, the people that live there, the people that are going to move in there. If it's a high density development, there's a lot of traffic going to be coming in and out of there. School buses. So I'll be the first, if this development had the ability to put a traffic circle in, and I will stand up here and be the first to admit, when they built the traffic circles in Blacksburg, the first one, I thought that was just the worst use of taxpayers' money there ever was. there's not enough tow trucks to pull the cars that are gonna have accidents in there. I'm here in front of you tonight saying that's the best thing that's ever been put into the town of Blacksburg. They work, and they work well, very well. I would give some support to this development if this traffic circle could potentially be a part of this planned development. And from
Thank
what
you,
little
Mr.
bit I heard
France.
from David, the VDOT guys,
Mr. France, your time's up. Thank you, sir.
I don't support it. Thank you.
Next up, BJ Harris.
I live out at 5594 Homestead Road, out on the edge of Reiner. I don't even know if this is the right venue, but haven't really had any help up to this point. I tried to go to a Parks and Rec meeting last week, and I showed up, and I guess they canceled it and didn't bother telling anybody, so I walked around the building twice in the rain trying to find an open door to even get in. They're building a park in Reiner, right down the street, right next to the fire department. And I called Mr. Hall, I think. He's the supervisor for the town of Montgomery Parks and Rec. And that didn't really go that well. And so they're basically, as I have been told, it's soccer fields, basketball courts, tennis courts, the like, correct? So they're building that 9/10 of a mile away from the high school, the school complex. And we already have all that stuff there, and it's open to the public. I asked Mr. Hall about a skate park, possibly going in. And I said, you know, they've had really good luck in Blacksburg and Christiansburg with skate parks. And his response was that the skaters were a nuisance. So I don't really think I'm going to get any help from this man. And I was actually told to come and address you guys instead. And Dean Crane from Blacksburg Parks and Rec, I think he does a really great job. I've worked with him in the past. We built a park in Blacksburg back in the 90s. It was wood. And, you know, we got a lot of traction behind it. And now they have, you know, like $1 million concrete park. And I also talked to Terry that runs the aquatic center and the skate park in Christiansburg. And her and Dean both do their jobs very well, and they both think that it's a good place for tax dollars. Dean was telling me years ago that, you know, if he drives around Blacksburg, you know, the tennis courts are empty, the basketball courts are empty. He was like, if it's dry, even if it's 15 degrees, there's always skaters out there using it. I think it's a good place for our tax dollars. I don't know why my kids should be excluded, you know. Radford put in a park. They just opened up their first phase. Pulaski's starting one. I think if you look at the fire department that they just built, I thought it was too big for our community, but I think other people that run things look at it like Reiner is growing. Things are changing. Reiner is growing by leaps and bounds. And I think we need more of this forward-thinking approach when it comes to the park. I think this is, when he told me that we were a nuisance, that the skaters were a nuisance, I get that. I'm almost 50 years old. I grew up skating in the 80s and 90s. The cops chased us everywhere we went. You know, cars of guys would get out and try to beat us up. I get that. But I want something better for my kid. And I just don't think I'm going to get anywhere going through Mr. Hall. I don't know. Can you guys give me some sort of advice here? Like, is the park a done deal? I don't understand really what's going on.
Yes, we don't respond, sir, this during public address.
Well, all right. So
but we're listening.
Where
Yes,
should
sir.
I go for, you know, like, where do I go for the best advice on this?
With the-
Parks and Rec meeting, maybe?
I would, yes, sir.
Okay. Is that like, I just don't even get it. Like, I really don't understand being called a nuisance. I really don't.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your time. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
That it concludes the list. However, if any citizen would like to come forward, they'll have 4 minutes to address the board if you'll state your name and address.
Chris Waltz, 1370 Rigby. I sent you all an email before the meeting. Sorry I didn't get it to you sooner. But it was about the Montgomery Museum and their tax exempt status. I guess been put on hold. You know, it surprised me after last meeting where everybody seemed to be surprised about it. Because in November of 2021, Bob Poff, a director, and Bob Miller approached Craig Meadows at the regional tourism meeting about renting space from the museum for the tourism office, which it currently is being rented at the old 300 Pepper Street, which again, they're making a profit off that. And as far as the Agape Center, the Mountain Empire Services, the ones you approved last time, they're still showing as being taxable. But 4 East Main Street and the assessed values is showing that it's non-taxable. And you all haven't even made a ruling on it yet. I'm just wondering how that's happened. And as far as the other, with the old building, the last page of the PDF I sent you gives you a remedy that you all can do. If they're not doing the right thing and they're not going to the state, then you all have the ability to go to the state and say they're not following the rules. And they are renting to commercial properties, and we're renting from them through Valleywide Management, who the president of that is Bob Poff, a director of the museum for the tourism office, to the tune of $15,000 a year. We're talking about all these taxes and reassessments, and evidently, when they bought the building, it just automatically went in as non-taxable. And I was informed today when I was downstairs researching this stuff that there's some kind of closed meetings going on to work it out in the museum's favor. You should be having those publicly, especially because the director of the museum is a public official. He is an elected official at the town of Christiansburg. Because otherwise, what this looks like is it looks like the good old boy system is still here in Montgomery County, and you all are giving preferential treatment to another politician and his organization. And yeah, I'd be pretty pissed if I was that guy too, calling skaters a nuisance. Evidently, I guess I'm a nuisance now too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to come forward to address the board?
Hi,
Miss-
again.
Miss Miller, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I think you have, did you already do a public address?
No.
No, that was for the hearing.
That
Okay.
was for the hearing,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
Thank
Continue,
you.
my mistake.
That's fine. Susan Miller, 3065 Mud Pike Road. I just wanted to make an observation or tell you something that occurred to me regarding the building to be built on Tyler and Mud Pike Road on the corner. The other day in Blacksburg, I was in the right-hand lane, the edge right at the curb downtown, and an 18-wheeler turned left off of turned right off of Main Street. I had to back up 25 feet in order for him to make the turn, which is the equivalent distance from the corner of turning right on the Mud Pike Road onto the Mud Pike Road. And the people in the right-hand lane then would have to back up 25 feet to allow that to happen. That's basically what I wanted to add.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, how are you all? Lowell Bowman on Childress Road. Well, I came here tonight. I was going to do a whole lot more fussing and about my reassessment, but your presentation kind of answered all my questions. So that was really good. I was encouraged to see that. I will just make this one point. I'll be kind of quick. Inflation has affected every one of us, all the families here in Montgomery County, and including our fixed income families and all those folks. So we've all had to tighten our budget over the last year or two. So we would expect our county to do the same thing. And I would like to see that the tax rate would be changed. That is a tool that you can use to not raise our taxes. So now would be a very bad time to raise our taxes with the way the economy is right now. So anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Joanne Price, Blacksburg. I sent my sentiments in an email earlier today, but there's one thing I want to add, and that is the fact that only 449 people have appealed or used that process. That tells me that people just don't know, because this is going in this community like wildfire. And so people do not know the process. So we got to do a better job of letting people know. And we only have just a few more days before the deadline of 16th on Friday. So what I recommend is that you use social media and everything else we can to get the word out to people so that they do know, because that's not indicative of what's going on in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's everyone doing tonight? I hope everyone is doing fine, and I thank you for the presentation. I kind of have to agree with Joanne Boulding about what she was saying.
Ms. Hicks, will you give us your address, please?
Oh, I'm so
Thank you.
sorry. 607.5 South Franklin Street, Christiansburg, Virginia, and I'm coming as a town citizen of Christiansburg. The reassessment was definitely a slap in the face kind of thing, but one of the biggest problems I have with this whole thing, not just the reassessment, but the whole thing that when I received this package, it came in the mail today. And this is not even all my properties. And so if that's just me alone, how many people have not received that in the mail yet? And that's concerning because today's the 12th. And people only have until the 16th to file for this or to make a phone call or to complain about this. I see that as a problem for our citizens. And so maybe there is an extension that you guys can create, I don't know, but it just will sound a little bit more like you're working with the citizens in the community. Another thing that I was thinking about was that my house is a perfect example. I haven't done nothing to my house in the last years. We live next to a cemetery, next to a highway. It's a modular home. We don't have granite countertops, and yet the price value of our house went over almost $80,000 within the last 4 years. That to me is over $800, almost $800 increase just in taxes in 1 year for my family. That doesn't count the other houses that we have that have gone tremendously, some of them almost 100% their value. And when you look at them, we bought them at those prices for a reason. There is a perfect house on White Pine. There is no enough sewer line to have more than one person in the house living in today. There is literally all floors, all walls. There is nothing that we really have done besides painting and power washing the outside of the house and putting 2 windows on the side of a garage. And so I am obviously going to be filing appeals for this stuff or whatever, but I was just saying, I hope that you guys can listen to us and make the changes, the appropriate changes. Another thing that as a town, Christiansburg, we have 89 cents per 100, but we also see an impact with our own tax, the town tax that we pay. that 16 cents may not be a lot, but it's a lot for us too, because the reality is when you guys do the assessment, our values go up too. That means that our taxes also increase there too. And not only that, but you guys are not paying for the SROs, for the police, for our town schools. You're not paying for Parks and Rec, the aquatic center for us. You're not paying for a lot of those quality services that we need, including police in the town. So I just wanted just to say my word. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward to address the board? Seeing no one come forward, we will close public address. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. That's okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors. Appreciate your time this evening. My name is John Neal. I'm an engineer with Foresight Design at 1260 Radford Street in Christiansburg. I just wanted to reiterate, we're part of your old business tonight, the Circle K Travel Center. Wanted to reiterate that we did a full traffic impact analysis by our traffic engineer that evaluated the intersection and looked at all the specifics that are required in evaluating that intersection. The county's on-call transportation consultant reviewed that same study and concurred with all of our findings. And the Virginia Department of Transportation's department reviewed that study and approved everything that we did as well. And it found that the intersection functioned as it needed to. So just want to make sure you all knew that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the board for public address? Seeing no one, we will close public address and we will take a 5-minute break and we'll come right back. Thank you. we'll call the meeting back to order. Meeting back to order. Next up, addendum.
We have no addendum this evening, Madam Chair.
Addendum. Thank you. Items of consent.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Chakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Old business, rezoning Roanoke Valley Holdings LLC.
Madam Chair, this is back on your agenda this evening for any action if the board would desire to do so.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
Motion and a second. Now we'll open it up for discussion.
I was just going to make the comment that we had received new information, but we were unaware of it until the meeting started. And it consists of the voluntary proffer statement form. And I guess, Marty, did you fix this for us? So,
I did not fix that. I just received it as well.
okay, so it's new to all of us, and we're supposed to be voting on it tonight. And I just wondered if, since this just came to us, do we want to go ahead and vote on this tonight? Do we want to go ahead and just open it up for discussion and then make a decision about it, or where are we? And I would sort of like to know, how everyone feels about it, I guess is what I'm saying. Because the audience is not aware of this at all, right?
I'm not
Okay.
aware if they're aware.
Okay.
Would it be good for we to have the applicant to come up and to go over the new conditions?
Thank you,
Good
Chair
evening.
Blevins. Board, good to see everybody. Steve Simonis with Balzer and Associates, 80 College Street in Christiansburg. Appreciate a little bit of extra time tonight. I just wanted to give a quick overview to the board. After our meeting 2 weeks ago, we spent about 30 minutes outside of the meeting with our neighbor, Ms. Ryland, that spoke in opposition to the project 2 weeks ago concerning traffic on 114. And we obviously heard the board's concerns that night as well. The next morning, I followed up with VDOT, with Jesse Miller. We had a meeting that we scheduled for the following Wednesday, so 2 days after our meeting. Jesse provided Bree a very nice email as far as going over the comments and the discussion we had. I provided Bree also a memo that touched on a few of those points, and I'd just like to, if the chair would allow me, just to touch on those on the record. We wanted to go over the issues that the board brought up that night and look to see what we can do for the safety of 114. So safety has been our number one priority on this project since we submitted it. That was part of one of our reasons for even relocating our road from our first application location on the far east to where it is now. The four items we touched on in our application, or I'm sorry, in our follow-up letter, was first about the roundabout. We did have conversations with VDOT that morning about what is the potential of a roundabout or some sort of a signalized intersection at our project site on 114. As Mr. Clark and Mr. Miller and Ms. Cheney spoke to us that morning, as we talked about at the meeting, there has to be a certain amount of warrant for a roundabout or a signal to go in. The limited left-hand turns that would be going into our project don't meet those warrants. And because of 114 being a major thoroughfare, obviously in our county, you don't want to create a situation where you're getting into a signalized or a controlled intersection when the purpose is to move traffic through. So until the warrant got there for those left-hand turns, a roundabout or a signal at that intersection would not be supported by VDOT. The second piece was the reduction of the speed limit. I believe Supervisor Shepherd had brought that up, if it could go from 45 to 35. Again, as Mr. Clark mentioned tonight, that is the 45 has gone into effect. They just haven't been posted yet. But again, at this time, a 35-mile-an-hour road or speed limit reduction would not be supported by VDOT in that area at this time. When we finished that part of the conversation, we said, okay, well, what can we do? What are some other ways that our client can improve that stretch of road around our project? We obviously can't go in and widen 4.5 miles of 114 on our nickel, but what can we do in that area? So we had two ideas. One was, could we extend our widening piece of our section of the road and look at possibly putting a left turn lane going into Rolling Hills? That was one of the items that was brought up about rear end accidents for people turning left on Rolling Hills going westbound. The other one was to address this specific concern from our neighbor, Ms. Ryland, concerned about when she stops or slows down to turn right into her driveway, what could we do to improve that situation? What we came to on that was basically a taper. So a 12-foot paved asphalt taper that would come from her driveway and taper out 50 feet and tie back into the existing road. That is a VDOT standard, what you would see on a private entrance or a private commercial entrance. We talked through that. We looked through it on our end, what we can do, what would work. Followed up with Bree with our letter. We were then, Bree and I chatted, and I believe the county attorney took a look at those two issues, the Rolling Hills turn lane and the taper, and basically consulted saying, we can't add those in as a proffer with our application because it's an off-site improvement that is not directly attributable to our project. So again, we were looking for ways to make the project safer above and beyond what we're required to do in order to meet VDOT regs and county transportation regs to get into our project. That's how much safety meant to us and how much we heard you all at our last meeting. So what we did in our letter, our client, RP Fralin, is committed to, if this project moves forward, to putting in the taper for Ms. Ryland and her family. If they choose to ask us to do that, we're happy to do it. And we will go through the process of a design on that Rolling Hills left turn lane. At the end of the day, it's not Balzer's decision on whether that gets approved or the county's. It's really a VDOT decision. If we can't meet the turn lane requirements based on taper lengths and full storage lengths for that Rolling Hills left turn, we can't put it in, but we're willing, if we can make the geometry work and VDOT will approve it, we'll put it in, widen the road, and put that section in to help the turning movement for those 53, 56 homes there on Rolling Hills. I've had the opportunity just this afternoon, and this is the reason for the quick proffer statement change. I had a conversation with a couple of you this afternoon, as well as talking with Bree. One of the ideas, we'd really like to see this project move through. We think it's a great project. It's in an urban expansion area. We've met the VDOT requirements. We think it meets the comprehensive plan, but there were still some concerns. So two items that we wanted to touch on tonight, and I sent this to Bree as soon as we got it signed and typed up and signed this afternoon. But add two new proffers to the project itself. Those are number 3 and number 4. Right now, we have 201 homes or units, livable units proposed. So one of the ideas was to help alleviate some of the concerns about traffic immediately. And the second piece, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this up, was the secondary emergency access. We have been working over the last 2 weeks with Grace Life Baptist Church. Pastor Height and Mr. Fralin have been discussing this back and forth as far as trying to get another access that I believe Supervisor Bone brought up in our last meeting. Where we stand with that, those conversations are ongoing. Actually, Mr. Fink, who's here tonight on the Price's Fork project, is the consultant for Grace Life, and we had a chance to chat this afternoon. He said he'd be happy to speak to the board tonight to talk about Grace Life's support of the project and us working together to get there. So what we wanted to do on that is put in here a proffer that no more than 50% of the allowable density, so basically no more than 100 units, would be able to get a certificate of occupancy until we get that secondary emergency access road included with our project. So there's several subdivisions, numerous subdivisions and apartments and townhome projects across the county that have more than 100 units coming out on one access point. And a lot of times, as you all know, especially in the county, as growth happens, that's why we stub roads out for future connections. So if we can work something out with the church feels this would be a good idea. It would allow them to open up a gate on their heavy use times, on their last service on Sunday or Easter Sundays or Christmas Eve services, and allow another way for their congregation to get out and go westbound on 114 as opposed to coming out to the one entrance that they have. So we think it's a very big benefit to both parties, and both parties are committed to working together. And as I mentioned at our meeting 2 weeks ago, the biggest piece of this that we've got to work through is just the environmental impact piece of it. There are creeks and some wetlands down there that we need to minimize the disturbance to as part of this project. But both parties are open to working this out. So that's why we put number 3 in there, that we wouldn't develop any more or get certificates of occupancies for any more than 100 units, half the project, until that secondary access has been obtained. And then 4, I believe, I didn't hear this firsthand. I heard that there was a concern about when the road improvements, if this is approved, when the road improvements would be put in as part of this project. And is there a way that those could be done the very first thing? So construction traffic using that road to access the site would be doing so in the most safe manner. So we added that proffer number 4 that basically says all required Peppers Ferry Road turn lane improvements shall be installed at the beginning of the first phase of construction, and no home construction can occur until road improvements are complete. We would have to have some grading equipment in there to help with fill and along the edge of the road, so there would be some earth moving. But the biggest concern when you start getting the homes in there. You get the big heavy concrete trucks and the siding trucks and the brick masons and everybody else, all the trades coming in to build homes. So those road improvements would be done before we would start any vertical construction. So we really feel that with the inclusion of those 2 proffers, that we're making this as safe and as viable of a good project as we can with the county. We as I said, we can't widen the whole road, but we really feel that these improvements to 114, the ones that are required, as well as the ones we're committed to do with VDOT assistance, will really make this a much safer intersection than what's out there right now. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have for me.
Thank you, sir. Go around the room. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay. Supervisor Shepherd first.
I understand the turn lanes is going to help turning into rolling hills. That's not my issue. My issue is the vehicles coming out of that development onto a road that's 45 mile an hour with a limited sight distance, I think. I mean, and then did I understand you right that the exit that you're working on getting put in with Grace Life is going to be gated?
It would be an emergency access, yes, sir. Because it wouldn't be a public road.
It would be an emergency entrance, but it would also be opened on Sundays so the congregation can use it.
Correct. That was the discussion between the church and the developer.
That's just putting more traffic in that division. But anyway, I don't know.
Well, to the point of sight distance, we have looked at sight distance. We meet VDOT standards for sight distance at our location of our entrance.
Yeah, I understand that. That's all I have.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Bone, did you?
I'd like you to come back to me if you would.
Okay, yep. All right. Supervisor Fijkowski?
Those are pretty much my concerns also, that I appreciate all the work that you've done to try to mitigate all these issues, but you're not going to improve safety until there is a turn lane for rolling hills. So that's my biggest concern. But the other concern is that you need more than an emergency way out of that subdivision. It doesn't make any sense to me that if this is a doable thing, that you can't make that work. But again, I hear what you're saying, and I hear that you're coming up with solutions to them, but there's no guarantees that they're going to be followed out. I would prefer that you wait and get some engineering advice from VDOT or approval of whatever that turn lane is in Rolling Hills, because if you can get the turning traffic in their own lane, that's going to be the safest. Like Supervisor Shepherd said, all you're going to be doing is just adding more traffic to 114 without mitigating any real safety issues. Because that's the issue, when people stop to make those left-hand turns and everything backs up, that's when you have all those back rear-end accidents. So those are my concerns too. So.
But we do have, Supervisor Fidzikowski, we do have a left-hand turn lane going into our development, and we've got a heavier traffic count that would be making that left-hand turn into us than the smaller amount going into Rolling Hills. Again, our development doesn't impact Rolling Hills from a left turn lane standpoint. So again, that was something extra we were trying to do to see if there was a way we could make that situation better.
Supervisor King.
I have no question, but I do appreciate you trying to work through all this.
Supervisor DeMonts.
You probably knew where I was going with the questions I was asking for VDOT to answer earlier related to Smart Scale. It's unfortunate that you're here before us tonight defending a much-needed housing project when in the reality, it sounds like the funding from VDOT, I mean, a 4-lane there would be ideal if we could do that. It sounds like in order to get Smart Scale funding, we need more accidents on the road in order to be able to improve the road, which is reactive rather than proactive. And so you're in an uncomfortable position. I appreciate that. I don't have any questions for you. This is a really hard position and it's a hard decision.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Well, I want to thank you for the time you took today to talk to me about the concerns, and it was, as all of you have mentioned, the safety concerns, and I appreciate the willingness to look at, building it out slower.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that we haven't, I think we might have mentioned it publicly last time, but one of the things that came up that we haven't talked about besides safety is the impact on schools. And when we talked to the school superintendent and to the folks, about the future of having 121 students, possibly out of that development, coming into schools that were already full, that was the issue that we probably need to sort of keep in front of us. But I'm still concerned about the traffic. I like the development concept, and I know we need the housing, but I'm really torn about this. And I know in Virginia, we do things backwards, like Supervisor DeMont says, we never have the roads planned. You always plan the roads after you have so many people in accidents or killed. I mean, that's just the way it works in Virginia, which is unfortunate. I'm still really torn about it. I don't know if it would be better to have you all, go back and work a little bit closer with the church. I mean, I'm really concerned, what if you have a fire in there? Or something happens and you have to get ambulances and fire trucks in and out. I know you have the emergency exit, but we're talking about, I think you said, 201 homes? Mm-hmm. That's a lot of houses, so I'm still concerned about that. But I don't want that to imply that I don't appreciate what you have done and what the developer have done just today. And like I said at the beginning, this is all new to us.
Mm-hmm.
Just got it tonight, so that's something to also think about. And I want to hear what Supervisor Blevins has to say, since it's in her district, and she's been getting most of the phone calls and emails about this.
We'll go back to Supervisor Bone.
I actually love what you've just proposed. I just have a question for Marty. With the new proffers, do we have to, can we actually vote on it if we wanted to?
I think you have 3 options. You can consider it and vote on it. You can you could send it to the planning commission and have them look at it and give you a recommendation. I don't know if that's worthy of the time because they approved it, and this is just a little bit more of a restriction. And then, or the third one would be to, is to set this over to a future meeting in order to give it time to think about it and consider it.
So we can approve it if we wanted to. Okay, that's all I had, but thank you.
Steve, thank you for taking my call today. And as you heard someone in public address today, I constantly hear complaints about Route 114. And I know that that's not the builder's fault. I mean, it is an urban expansion, and it is a difficult choice here. One of the major things, and I do appreciate this new information and the willingness with the church and reaching out that you guys are trying to mitigate to make this work. But it would only be if the church, they're willing to do something, but it would only be an emergency exit entrance.
What we spoke about at the last meeting was there a way to have a secondary emergency access? We can't put a public road, that's a private road that leads to the church, so we don't want to connect a public road into that private road. The public road extension could go off to the west, as we have it shown. I believe it's Road B that shows connecting for a future, connection to the west end of our property. That could be a public road connection in the future. This one would be set up as just a private access in and out in case of an emergency or those other, those other times that I mentioned.
So it would only be in a case of an emergency that we would, and my opinion would be any type of emergency, our first responders would find a way to help their citizens. So that would be whatever we needed to do to get to our people to help, we would do that. But then I'll have concerns that open up another problem, that is, if you allow that traffic only on certain days, well, then I would be upset. Well, why is it just on this certain day that you're allowing traffic to, and I get it, because that would be a big flow of traffic during those times, but then other citizens will be like, well, why wouldn't it be available for us to use? Or then people would start using it when they're not supposed to, that type of thing. So that also leads to concerns. It is very challenging because I am constantly hearing from citizens that I currently serve that they do not want this development because it increases traffic. Now, the downside is that we do need housing, and it is part of Route 114 does have, it's part of our urban development for the comprehensive plan. But right now, even if you put half of those people in these homes, safety is first and foremost, and they don't have an out. What if there's an accident that has to, Lord forbid, fatality, and that's intersections blocked for hours or the day? Where are these people going to come? How are they going to get in and out? And I do appreciate the builder and you guys trying to find ways to mitigate this. And with this new information, I would like to have some more concrete plans of what's doable, what can we do, is there any way to make it a permanent entrance and exit it from that second? Because then these new people that move in, they're going to have the same problem with Route 114 that the existing citizens do too. And they're going to be backed up trying to get in and out of that one entrance. And it's just a very dangerous spot. And it is disheartening to know that even though we constantly hear that there are problems, it's not enough problem to warrant the roundabout or to warrant a traffic light or the funding. So those are my major concerns, and this does not, although it helps, it does not. And with the extension of the turn lane for Rolling Hills, there's no guarantee that VDOT would approve that, correct?
That's correct. Until they see the actual study, the engineering behind it, and can make a determination either here locally or at Salem District.
And I appreciate that that's not something you're required to do. You were just trying to help mitigate the traffic on Route 114 for that. So we are taking in all those considerations, but we don't want to make more problems down the road with safety and that other problems with that development. With this being new information, I would like to wait and think about if we can get some more information from the church to see what if there are any other options before we vote on it. Do I have any follow-up from supervisors?
Yes.
I would like to add that I do think, and I should have mentioned this, I think your plan for the community is very good. I like it a lot, but this is a very difficult decision because we don't want to create a problem in the future. And it's traffic for me, but I just wanted to add that.
Would Mr. Clark be able to answer a question for us? If you can. Yes. Thank you so much for staying for the evening for that. My question for the rolling hills, and I know you have to do engineering, so do you foresee any reason VDOT would not approve the extension of that turn lane for rolling hills?
No, I don't. It would just have to meet, some of the geometric requirements, length of actual storage in the turn lane, length of taper. It seems that area is there, so I would probably rate it a high probability that it would be approved.
And could you explain or tell me a timeline or process of how long that would take? And I know that one of the proffers was that the road, the improvements would be done first.
It should be a very simple process, and it can probably be approved in our office in Christiansburg.
Approved, but I'm saying how long will it take to get done, just an estimate? If it was approved, if the extension and the turn lanes were approved, what is the construction time?
Construction time? I don't know. That'd be tough to say because it would all be done by, it wouldn't be done by VDOT crews. It wouldn't even be a contract that VDOT would administer. It'd be very similar to what's going on at the elementary school, Bellevue Elementary School, which is being done just under VDOT kind of supervision of the geometry of it, but we're not directing the construction or administering the contract.
Could you give me an estimate of the time frame? Are we talking about 3 months? We talking about a year to do?
To put in the term, no, it would be months for sure, depending on if it would be done this. Again, I have no idea what the time frame on any of this is, but you get into good weather. I would say something like in the 6 month, 4 to 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. I was going to say 3 to 6 months. Yeah.
May I ask a question? Mr. Clark, can you tell us if this intersection is actually getting less safe or more safe? If the rolling hills and everything else that they've put in this plan, is this getting less safe or more safe?
It's hard to say.
It's the same.
Yeah, and it would probably stay the same, actually. The number of vehicles per day is less than those that are out on Price Fork Road right now, the anticipated vehicles per day using that entrance, which is why it doesn't warrant anything that would obstruct traffic on the 114 corridor. Wouldn't warrant a signal, wouldn't warrant any other kind of roundabout that would impede the general flow. So you put adequate turn lanes in, right turn, left turn, and then it would be a kind of a neutral safety issue.
You would assume the same amount of accidents would continue to happen. It won't improve the accidents.
No.
Is what you're saying.
No.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor DeMont.
Just a follow-up question for the VDOT approval timeline. If there was a process to approve the left turn onto Rolling Hills, what would the timeline for approval be?
That would be
the
very
paperwork.
short. Yeah, that would be very short.
Like 6 weeks, 2 months, 1 month?
A matter of a couple weeks, probably.
Okay.
Once they turn it in, yeah.
That gives us an idea if we're to hold this over, and that being one of the contingencies, how long would we need to go through the VDOT process?
Yeah. Without any kind of major, barriers that we can't foresee, it's a simple process.
Supervisor Shepherd?
It seems like this, once one division is started, another one starts, and there's a piece of property that's for sale close to that one, right? Right beside of it.
It's already been purchased.
It's already been purchased. So what happens when they come to, before us and say, we want to put 200 houses? Does that warrant the traffic number going up, or is that a whole separate?
It's every entrance, every connection is
a separate
considered on its
issue.
own, yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Clark, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, yes.
Could I just have one clarification from the county attorney? If the board sees fit to push this another month or so and we can get something finalized with the church and have some further discussions with VDOT, I'd agree with David that if everything works geometrically, that is a pretty easy process to review. My concern, and I think I mentioned it to both of you all on the phone today, is if that geometry doesn't work because we don't have enough room between those two entrances and we have to go with an exception or a variance through VDOT, that sometimes has to go to Salem and could extend that timeline. That's the unknown we don't know right now. But I guess for Marty, if this is something the board wants to see, even if VDOT, if we put a plan together and VDOT blesses it and says, yes, this can be approved with a full set of construction documents, we still can't proffer it because it's an off-site improvement. So how does the board feel confident enough that we're doing what we're saying we're going to do to see fit to move our project through? That's where I'm stuck with. I feel like we're trying to do something really, really good and we're almost being punished for it a little bit. We're trying to get there and do what's best, but if we can't proffer it and we can't get there, how do we help you guys say yes? I'm probably not allowed to say that, but I said it.
Well, I think you've shown a willingness and a commitment here in trying to mitigate. So I don't mean to speak for the board, but I feel that we all see the willingness of the builder to try to accommodate and try to mitigate. And those things we appreciate, but the secondary entrance is going to be a major concern for me with 200 homes. And I think you guys said the traffic increase would be 1,400 plus. 1,400 plus would be people in that are coming from that area, and one entrance and exit, just setting us up for all kinds of nightmares.
It's my understanding, and I could be completely wrong, but it'd be another thing if they weren't putting in the turn lanes. It'd be a nightmare, right? But the turn lanes is what allows it to stay as safe or as dangerous as it is right now. It's not making that's my understanding. Am I saying that correctly?
That's my understanding.
Right.
I mean, that's the reason we have to put the turns lane in,
Right,
because the amount of
so-
traffic on 114
Right.
and the amount of traffic using our entrance.
But because there's a higher volume of people, does that mean we're going to have more accidents because there is a higher number of people?
It's
know
a wild guess because you're putting people, while you're going to have more people using that intersection, you're putting people in designated turn lanes that don't exist out there today.
Right.
That's why we feel it's going to be a safe intersection. It's going to be as safe as we can make it.
Thank you.
But the reason for the turn lane for the development, not the extension, is it is a requirement because of the amount of volume coming in and out?
It's the amount of volume on 114.
A volume on 114.
Yes, ma'am. Because I actually went back today and looked, if we cut our development in half, would we be required to put any turn lanes in? We wouldn't have to put a right turn lane. The right turn lane would go away. But it's the opposing traffic when you're making a left turn. So our development's not, is adding a little bit to that opposing traffic, but that's the kicker. So we could drop our traffic to 2 cars, in the PM hour. There's so much traffic in that afternoon that it doesn't matter how many cars we've got turning into ours, you'd still need to put a turn lane in. So I guess my question would still be out to Marty if he could answer it now or maybe get back with me. But if we get something in place with VDOT and we get something signed in writing with the church, I just want the board to understand it's still not a proffer. So we're doing everything we can.
And going back with the church, and I appreciate the church's willingness to try to do something, but we don't really know if what's possible until we do engineering and studying, and there is also the issue of the wetlands for
Yes, ma'am.
an environmental study. So it's possible that may not be a feasible option at all.
It's feasible. It's a cost at that point. If we go over a certain threshold of stream limits or length of stream or square footage of wetlands that we disturb, it kicks you into a different permitting process with the Corps of Engineers and DEQ. It's doable. It's just after you get over a certain threshold, you have to mitigate that, and that's either constructing wetlands or paying into a wetland bank. So I've never said it's not doable. It's just that there's a cost benefit on getting that down there and how much of those wetlands and streams we possibly disturb. Because that was one of the reasons we kept the open space down there, so we wouldn't be impacting those.
But so it is doable depending on the cost effectiveness to actually put in that as like a permanent second entrance or exit.
Could be, yes, ma'am.
Could be.
Yep.
May I ask another question?
Supervisor.
For us, I think the question on the table really is, if we get all of that okayed, whether it's VDOT and the church, are we going to have enough votes to approve it? If we're not, then we shouldn't waste anybody's time, you know? So people have to think about if they do get the, the extra, I forget the name of the road, I apologize.
Rolling Hill.
Right. And the church, and maybe that gate can be open more than, just on Sundays. Is that enough to help people vote for it? Otherwise, I think we should vote for it today and, not approve it.
I agree completely with that.
I definitely believe that a second entrance and exit would make a huge difference for the traffic coming in and out of there. And if we could, that would be something that I would be willing to consider. But you do have a valid point. If they do these things, would this board approve it? And then, of course, this Supervisor Shepherd said, we have other projects that will probably coming down the road, and we're going to be in the same position.
But for me, it seems like, we evaluate, we see the options, we got this option of the church, they're kind of lucky, that there's actually a road there, but, not everybody's going to have all the luck that these guys have. But anyway, I think it's easy for people to see what goes on here at our meetings and our concerns. So the next development better darn well, have those types of things already so that it's not this difficult.
And you're not proposing a second entrance and exit. You're proposing the possibility of an emergency.
That's what I took from our last board meeting that was the biggest concern. We know we can't get another full access intersection to 114
Right.
within our frontage and meet guidelines with that. So we were trying to figure out a way we could get to the private road that the church and the mobile home park use in case of an emergency. And we've done this in other subdivisions. You have a gated access and fire and rescue and police. It's one of the standard locks, and that can be opened up. And we just learned this week, or end of last week, I guess, that the church would be interested in using that as well to help some of their traffic flow problems on Sunday mornings. So again, it's a win-win for both if we can get that to work. But that was our intent in the discussion, was as a 20 or 24 foot, not a 12-foot driveway. I mean, enough for two cars to pass. Base it on county standards. There just wasn't the thought of putting it in with a 50-foot public, VDOT right-of-way, to meet those type of standards. But it would have all the easements required that would allow that ingress and egress from both parties. So we'd have everything in place. We just hadn't planned for it to be a fully state road, because that's just dumping you into the church's, it'd be a state road coming into a private drive, which we wouldn't feel from a maintenance standpoint and a liability standpoint would be best.
Would you still be stubbing out Road B to be a future potential connector?
Yep,
So would
absolutely.
would you be looking at the private access to be Road C stubbing out maybe through lots 38 and 39?
Either that or coming off the other end of Road B around the duplex units.
The other end of Road B. Okay, I see.
One of those two, but yeah, the 37, 38, 38, 39.
38, 39, there on the very edge would be, just looking at the
That's a good
topography,
connection
kind
point,
of
but
a
that's
good-
where you've got a little bit of that flatter area that
Yeah.
we're afraid we might be into some of the wetland area at the bottom.
Any further discussion?
So how do we want to proceed, though?
Marty?
I just wanted to maybe address the point he made and just clarify it and make sure the board understands, and I think they do, is that the whole Rolling Hills turn lane cannot be, we can't require that, and we can't reject his development because he won't build it. However, you can consider, if they did put it in voluntarily, whether that would be enough to make it 114 safe enough for you to adopt it, to approve it, or maybe it's not enough and you still would not think it's the right thing to do. The other thing to consider in thinking is, we've had questions about what about the property around it? That could be another reason to maybe delay until the next meeting so that Bree could then maybe update you or give you an idea of what's around there, what can be developed, and take a look at it from that. It would be unfair to bring her up now, but it would maybe by the next meeting, if that's it seems like that information is relevant to what you're talking about.
Supervisor Shepherd?
On that point, I'd have a question as to how many vehicles coming out of that division would it take to bump that up to a signal or a traffic circle? And if you had that number, tied those other properties to this one, you know where I'm going? So you get the numbers up coming out of one entrance that you could have that traffic circle.
I'm not
I don't
sure
know what that
I'm
number
not
is.
sure off the top of the head, Supervisor Shepherd. I know at Price's Fork, I want to say we were close to about 3,000,
I was thinking it was
3,500
3,000 or a little over.
trips coming in, coming into Price's Fork, and with Price's Fork's existing traffic, that's what kicked it in. But we're less than half of what was required on that one. So it would take another big development, out there to kick those thresholds. And I know from talking with VDOT that day, or maybe it was with Jesse before our last meeting, he said that if a roundabout were to come onto 114, it'd be a big roundabout. The one at Price's Fork is small compared to what would end up being on 114. So again, that's not just a lot of cost on the developer. It's huge cost on the developer side, but again, I can't remember which supervisor asked. I think it was you, Steve. You asked about Pepper's Ferry and Price's Fork. If that intersection's done, is it ready to go as a 4-lane? And I think David said it would have to be expanded or maybe tweaked a little bit. So that's another thing you wouldn't want to do, is put, $4 or $5 million into a roundabout that once it is widened, either has to go to a 2-lane or you're adding more taxpayer cost to that.
But a signal isn't $4 or $5 million. A signal is not.
A signal isn't, no,
Right.
but again, VDOT standards, the way the VDOT regs are written now, if you're required to put in a signal, if you hit a signal warrant, and I know I'm not going to get the name right, but you've got to look at alternative methods. That's one of the things that have been updated in VDOT's guidelines over the last 5-10 years, whatever it is. So you have to look at these other types of movements, and the roundabouts are your next one to look at.
I see.
So if a roundabout can work and make it more functional, that's a better way to go because it keeps traffic moving as opposed to putting it in a stop condition.
Any other discussion?
Well, I just want to know if we want to change this or push it to a different date so we could find out the information that Marty mentioned that Bree could bring us. We could find out about more about could VDOT, like would all of that work? How would we go about doing that since the motion on the floor is to vote for or against it tonight? Like, how do we, if we want to, how do we fix that? That's what I'm
You
trying
could
to
simply
ask.
amend the motion,
Yeah, you substitute motion to.
substitute a motion to table it again.
No, don't use, I hate the word table.
Sorry. Defer.
No offense. Or just, defer it until the first meeting in January, if that'll give enough time. I don't know what that date is, 12,
It's
14.
January
ninth.
9th.
January 9th.
Does that give enough time over the holidays and all of that?
That's my birthday night. You got to approve it if I'm here on my birthday. Got to approve it.
Oh, no.
Talk about pressure.
Pressure. Would that be enough time with the holidays?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I think part of the relevant information is VDOT at least willing to allow those improvements.
Do we have the ability to defer it until the 23rd?
Yes.
I really wanted to say table.
I know.
Thanks for hanging with me.
I'm trying to break that, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
We could still legally.
As long as that works, does that
defer.
work for you guys?
We want to see the project approved.
Right.
If doing a little bit more digging on a couple of these things would help some of the supervisors, probably the 23rd. With my staff's holidays and VDOT's holidays, I think, I'd love to get it done on the 9th. But that's pretty tight, especially if we have to deal with anybody in Salem.
I have,
So-
I have another question. Is there a way that the church's private road can be improved so that the gate could be open, or half the gate could be, like, traffic coming out of the development but can't go into the development, maybe, that way? Not on a Sunday, but, Sunday, the gate's going to be wide open, but on the other times and days of the week, can at least be an exit? Or,
We'll have to, we have to check on the legal piece of that, and the reason I say that is the mobile home park owns a chunk of that section of road too. So I know the church has access to that, and the church has agreed to work with us beyond. That's why another reason we said from an emergency access perspective, as somebody said, I think Ms. Blevins, you did, if there's a fire, the fire trucks are going to get there no matter what they have to drive through. But again, we don't want to encourage people if we don't have the legal right to use it. So we're doing a little bit of digging on that.
thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd?
I'm just going to be upfront with you. Unless the speed limit can be dropped or something else changed, I'm probably not going to vote for it. Just because the turn lanes are nice, but I don't think they do a whole lot for the safety, I guess, coming off of 114. But in that housing development, you got little Johnny that's 17 years old that just started driving. He pulls out there and doesn't see a car coming. And I had a 17-year-old daughter that did just that on a different road. So that's my fear. And I'm sorry. I know you've done a lot of work, and I appreciate it, but
Do I have a, how do we say this, not amendment, or a substitute the motion? Can I have a substitute motion to defer this item to January the 23rd? Is
So
that the
moved.
correct terminology? I gotta say that right?
But only if, we have enough votes that if this all goes well, then
We're asking.
we would have the votes.
Yeah, we're asking a significant investment. I'm sure your hourly rate is not inexpensive, so we're asking for a pretty significant investment of your time at the Frayland's expense.
I know that I personally could vote yes after all that. I could do that. But that doesn't mean that we're going to have 3 other people that are going to vote yes.
I could too.
It would definitely help me.
We're willing to take the next steps if that helps the board.
We need one more vote, though. And we know we're not getting this vote over here. 1 vote out of 3 over there.
My concern is still, like Chair Blevins said, that other entrance, that's a pretty important thing. So what you're saying is this gate would have like a lockbox on it for fire and rescue to open?
That was our intent coming into this evening. I mean, what I've heard tonight, we'll change how we can try to go about getting more of what it sounds like you guys are asking for tonight. We came into it tonight trying to find an emergency access. So, and that's typically how we would do it.
Do they have that?
So I would say, the emergency access, I understand that's what the intent, but I'm looking for a secondary entrance and exit out of that, which will be a huge subdivision of 201 homes that will equate to about increase of traffic on Route 114 of 1,400 plus. So that's what I'm looking for.
So if you can give that to us, is that a positive vote? Or what else do you need? It's, again, he's trying to give us everything that we need. And I'm not sure if he could get there, but, he needs to know what that is because, yeah.
Well, what I would say is if we were voting on this tonight, it would be a no vote for me.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that secondary entrance and exit, that would sway me one direction more than the other.
Okay.
Again, I constantly have citizens call about complaints about Route 114. So even though I know we need the housing, these are citizens that from 2019, when I campaigned, said, what are you going to do about that road? What are you going to do about that road? It took 2 years to get the speed study completed.
Mm-hmm.
And the speed limit has not changed yet. It is going to be changed, but it has not changed yet. And so these are just concerns about these additional folks when they move in. Are they going to be in the same situation and they are going to be calling and complaining about traffic on Route 114 as well?
Right.
Have a motion and a second?
I don't have a second.
I don't have a second.
Second. To defer.
All in favor? I'm sorry. Madam
Yes,
Clerk calls the
call.
roll.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes to defer to January 23rd.
Thank you, Steve, for all your time.
And that way you can
Willingness.
celebrate his birthday.
Yep, happy birthday in January.
All right. Okay. Special use permit, 9DG LLC.
I do a motion just for discussion.
Second.
Motion and a second, and now discussion.
Board members, I believe Steve is here this evening to provide an update.
Yes, sir. Steve Drake, 1068 Gander Lane, Bedford, Virginia. We were here last meeting, and Mr. Patel wasn't here, but he's given me some information about some of the questions you had. One of them was Supervisor King, you asked about a demolition permit for the property. It was issued in August, and the work has been performed over there. I think you've seen that as you went by. There's nothing hardly left. On an up note, all of that material was donated to a local farmer to work on his barns, so it went to a good cause. We're here on a good night because one of the things you've been talking about has been taxes. We are getting ready to bring in $7 million worth of property improvements to this property. That's a lot of property taxes. We're going to bring a fresh face to that entrance. In front of you is a picture of what their Max Meadows facility looks like. It's nice, it's neat, it's clean, and it's a good way for the traveling public to get a glimpse of what's going on in Montgomery County. To respect some of your wishes and the public's wishes, we will and have reduced the overnight truck parking by over 58% from 24 to 14 spaces, changed the location of the trash containers to increase line of sight, widening the entrance at Mud Pike Road and adding a right turn lane off of it. They're going to make repairs to Mud Pike Road to prevent standing water, paint a lane divider in the median. That's one of the things I guess they couldn't get VDOT to do, but we're glad to do it. Provide a turn lane from Tyler Road. And we've met all of VDOT recommendation requests, all of them. And we have obtained all the necessary permits to date. Money and jobs. Heard a lot of talk about money. Like I said, $6 to $7 million total, $53,000 to $62,000 in real estate taxes. Total taxes going to the county treasurer will be over $100,000 in additional revenue, and that's a conservative number. We're also going to be in discussions with a fast casual restaurant, and that'll generate additional tax revenue and create another dozen new jobs. We plan on doing 10 to 15 jobs in this facility. Everybody asked about trucks parking on the side of the road. First of all, it is illegal. They can give a ticket for that, but the other side of that coin is every truck driver needs to stop after a certain amount of time to take a break from the road so he's not a hazard to himself or the traveling public. We're only looking at 14 spaces. And with that, to park in that space, you have to pump 100 gallons of gas into your truck. We have the ability to handle 2 trucks at a time, and it takes 15 to 20 minutes to fill those trucks, which means 6 to 8 trucks an hour is the max we're going to be able to handle on this. That's it. That means every 8 to 10 minutes, we'll have someone turning out of that facility. It's not back-to-back trucks like everybody thinks it is. It's just not the room. One of the things about truck drivers is they're a network system. They all get on their CBs and they talk to each other. And they're telling each other where the truck stops are full, or there's a parking place where you can get gas where you can. Time is money for a trucker, just like time is money for any other business. They're not going to go where they can't get in. We've left some examples, and we're going to email all this to you, of some of the other truck stops around here. You guys had mentioned those. Here's a picture that they just took on the roadway at Claytor Lake, exit 101. There's 50 truck parking spaces. That truck stop is generally quite empty. We're only going to have 14 trucks and 2 truck pumps at a time. We're not going to have any repair shops, any car washes, any truck washes, anything like that, no scales. So there's no reason for a lot of trucks to be pulling into that stop. And Mr. Patel wanted to point out, he's been 20 years working in managing and owning gas stations, travel plazas, and C-stores. These are all the things he's looked at to try to make this a better place to pull in. We are following all VDOT approvals. We have listened to everybody on this board and all the community, and we feel like we've tried to make every effort to work with you and provide a safe, clean travel environment for the public. Thank you.
Board members, do you have any discussion? No discussion?
Well, as I said last time, I go through there twice a day. And trucks coming out, just waiting to come all the way across 177 to take a left, go to the interstate. And some of them get frustrated and they just pull out there and park. I just think if VDOT would do something with that little intersection there, that'd be great. I got no problem with the store or a restaurant. Mainly what I'm hearing is the big trucks in that intersection.
Is there anything that can be done to prevent any signage, that will help the truckers not pull out? unless it's completely clear.
I think I can answer that with some authority.
Sure.
No.
The thing that I don't particularly like about this one is that, doesn't it downgrade the intersection? I think it downgrades. Yeah,
Yes and no.
To the mic.
yep.
Yes and no. It downgrades the right turn lane, but upgrades the left turn lane because we're widening the roadway and making it easy.
Bree's
access.
saying the other way, and so is John.
Pardon me?
Both
Oh, it's
Bree.
the opposite way, okay. Upgrading the right turn lane, downgrading the left turn lane. So it's a wash.
Except for more traffic's going left than right.
Every 6 to 8 minutes.
All right,
You can
John.
come, John.
Yeah.
Oh,
So currently, there is not a right or left turn lane out of Mud Pike. It's just a single lane. Right. And so right now, currently, that operates at a level of service C, the intersection. And traffic engineering, and you can go through VDOT and all the various traffic stuff, they actually allow up to level of service E is totally fine, still yet, and it's considered operational. With us adding in a right turn lane and the left turn lane, when we go to the evaluate the level of service at that point, the right turn lane now operates at a level of service B, and the left turn lane operates at a level of service D. So we go from a C to a B and a D, if that makes sense. Sorry, just to
And I guess
get
I
the
brought it up
specifics.
saying that the left turn is the more important turn because more traffic's going.
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Since there's so few parking spots for trucks, only 14, could this project go without it?
I think that's one of the things, we want to provide a holistic site for both trucks and to have that fueling opportunity for them there because there is a need there. Yes, sir. I think if the board was to turn us down, we'd have to look at what the next opportunities for that site might be. But I don't know that I can guarantee that it work. I don't know the economics of it, sorry. And I don't know if Jay would want to speak to that or not, maybe. I couldn't speak to that.
Yes, sir. Come forward.
My name is Jay Patel, living in Vinton, but we are doing project, you guys know, and thank you to give me the opportunity to speak. Just one calculation I would mention. Ms. Bree said 300 trucks in exit 128. It has a 6 trucks could pump the gas at a time. Has a 50 plus parking spot. If one truck gets 100-gallon diesel, 300 trucks a day, 30,000 gallon. If you multiple 30 days, it's 900,000 gallon. And if you multiple $4.5, it's $4 million plus with revenue. And that number is not accurate because they don't get 300 trucks. If we get only 14 trucks, if I get continuously trucks comes in my lot, 20 minutes fill up the one truck, it's 6 trucks to 8 trucks. End of the 24 hours, I will have only 124 trucks, which is not going to happen. So end of the day, maximum 100 trucks, maximum, I'm saying, 100 trucks will allowed from Mud Pike to Taylor. And we are using Mud Pike only 700 feet. You think if it's approved or not? If you do not approve it, we would like to go just regular gas station and the restaurant project. We are okay with it if you guys approve it. But I just want to give you realistic numbers which I observe. And across the road, the guy has a 50 parking spot, but he has only small canopy, which fill up only 2 or 3 trucks at a time. He never had a problem because if someone take the exit from the Tyler Road to his stop, he has to make a left turn, right? And after the fill up, he has to make a right turn again. We never had any traffic issue. Second thing, we are the small store, truck stop. We do not have a shower. We do not have a mechanical shop. We do not have a truck wash, nothing. So majority, no reward program. The Flying J, Pilot, those people have a big reward program and everything. So majority truck goes to that lot. They don't come to us. We got all the local trucks, the small delivery people. And end of the day, we all need milk, right? We need to support some truckers to get the groceries to our Kroger. That's it. But we are okay. If you guys don't approve to respect you guys, we are okay to do without truck stop. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, any other further discussion? I have, Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
We're
I'm sorry?
voting on the application for the special use permit as it is.
Okay.
Ms. Bone?
No.
Let me get to you, hold on. Mr. Shepherd?
No.
I'm sorry, I'm having internet issues.
Yes, we all are.
It just went away.
It's been a tough night up here on the
It has
internet.
been. I'll add it here in a minute. I'll handwrite it. Ms. Fidzikowski?
No.
Ms. Biggs?
No, but I'm very excited to hear that we could have the restaurant and regular gas station there. Yay. Okay.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
No.
Chair Blevins?
No.
6 ayes, I'm sorry, 6 noes, 1 aye.
New business. TPS School Capital Fund Transfer.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye, and
Mr.
thanks
Motts?
for the school people for being here.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
AFD 14 renewal, Fisher's View. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Okay. I think it just came back up. Ms. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Grant Administration, C, Special Use Permit, Patel and Shaw for General Store. Do I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion?
That was quick.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Ms. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Now we're on D, Grant Administration Agreement with the New River Valley Regional Commission Broadband.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Everybody excited about that?
Yes, ma'am. I was going to add items D and E related to the broadband. We were waiting on the announcement from the State Corporation Commission. These have been ready for a while, so thank you for your action on these items.
Very good. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right. Subrecipient agreement with New River Valley Regional Commission, ARPA funds for the broadband.
So moved.
Second. Third.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs? Who did I skip? I'm sorry.
You skipped me,
I
but you
voted
came back.
Okay.
Have
Chair
it
Blevins?
twice.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Support smart scale application Interstate 81 southbound widening between exits 137 and exit 128.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes. I know. does.
Your microphone's off.
Now do it.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were saying you
All
weren't
right, now I
close
think
to
my
it.
papers were covering up the mic too. All right, reports, county attorney.
Due to internet interruptions, there'll be no report tonight.
County administrator.
My internet came back, so I've just got a couple of items. Actually, I only have, well, I do have a couple of items. I wanted to mention that at the joint county school liaison meeting last week, we talked about a joint Board of Supervisors school board meeting. We had talked about those on fifth Mondays. Well, the fifth Monday in January is an opportunity, and it would give us an opportunity to hear more about the Christiansburg High School project, where they are with that, and maybe get some preliminary thoughts on the budget. So unless there's opposition to that, we have tentatively agreed with the schools to meet on Monday night, January 30th. So just wanted to make you aware of that, another meeting for the new year. And last but not least, Merry Christmas. Hope you have a great holiday season.
Very good. All right, supervisors' reports. We'll start off with Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I don't really have any report, but I appreciate the vote on the resolution to hopefully get a project going on the interstate, because that comes right through my district. And it's all part of the big plan, and I appreciate that. I just had heard about it just a couple days ago, and I appreciate it getting on the agenda. The vice chair of the TPO contacted me and said that all the localities in the area, all the way up to Botetourt and all around, are all in favor of it and are trying to support it. So that might help the project along. So thank you.
Supervisor King.
Don't have no report, but I do want to tell staff I appreciate you getting this reassessment update going, and all we can do to inform our citizens that we are working on it would be greatly appreciated. And we had a real nice little Christmas parade out Reiner Saturday. It was good.
Were you Santa Claus?
No, I was the hot chocolate man.
Take 2 pillows.
We had probably 150, maybe 200 people stop by the firehouse for hot chocolate and cider and all. It was really good.
Wow.
And wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Good. Supervisor Shepherd.
No report. I just hope everybody has a safe holiday season and a Merry Christmas.
Supervisor Bone.
No report. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Supervisor DeMonts.
No report.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Yes, I have one thing. I want to congratulate the Christiansburg Police Department and Mark Sisson. Last week at the Criminal Justice Service Board, they were certified as a crime prevention community. And so congratulations to them, and hope everyone has a safe holiday.
And just wanted to give just an update. Today we had a Virginia Tech basketball player, John Camden. He paid it forward and gave back to community with NRCA community action and their Head Start, and that was a great opportunity. The kids were excited to have the basketball player come and read to them and interact, and it was very cute, and enjoyed that opportunity to be there to witness that, and and that's great awareness for our Head Start program. And just wanted to say thank you for everyone's patience with the Route 114. It is challenging. There will be more challenges on that road as well, so appreciate everyone's willingness to really think through this for that. And I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We are adjourned.
Thank you. Traveling or staying here?